Today we'll be covering the 10 loadouts you need to have in COD Mobile. Obviously, this will vary between players, whether you are an AR main, an SMG main, etc. But for simplicity, we'll assume we're talking about someone who likes playing pretty much everything. And we'll be covering only ranked loadouts, not scrims, nor camo grind or BP grind loadouts. First of all, the test loadout. I usually like to keep this one pretty much free at all times to test things since it's a test loadout, obviously. I use this whether it is for camo grind purposes, BP grind purposes, or just trying new things in ranked. For example, when I started writing this video, it had a pretty basic ranked loadout with a bison, which later got included in my loadouts. And when I finished writing, it had the RAL LMG for camo grind purposes. Just use it for anything that's not permanent, and use it. It's important to try new things all the time, whether it's new guns, new operators, or new score streaks. That's how you learn how to use them, and by knowing how to use them, you know how to play against them. But what if I told you there's a system to organize your loadouts for maximum effectiveness, even across different ranges? From now on, we're going to be covering true loadouts. And because I'm a maniac, I like to order my loadouts by effective range. So, for the first loadout, we have a shotgun. It can be any of them, but the best one is the R90. Since it's a shotgun and it has a very limited range, we need a decent secondary for playing range. And the best pick, in my opinion, is the J358 here. It has no recoil, and it's great to cover what the R90 can't. For the operator skill, you can go for a lot of different options. What I wouldn't recommend is to have something you'd use in the same way you use your primary gun. So, not an equalizer or a purifier, because if you can take the kill with your purifier, you could probably have done it with your shotgun. And that goes for all the loadouts. If you don't really know what to pick, kinetic armor and misdirection device are your go-to. They work well no matter the gun, the situation, and they'll be effective every time. I personally enjoy using the Annihilator as you can pretty much do anything with it, whether it is in close, mid, or long range, and since I'm consistent with it, I get value 90% of the time. For the lethal equipment, it's really up to you. Either you want something to kill, like a sticky grenade, a C4, or a contact grenade. Or you want something to cover an area or a strategic point, then you want to go for a thermite, a molotov, or a trip mine. I personally prefer going for the molotov as restricting areas helps a lot with the shotgun. For the tactical equipment, it's pretty straightforward. Either you use a trophy or a stim shot or anything else. With the R90 or any gun with limited range in general, having a smoke or a storm ball helps a lot, again to restrict an area just like with a molotov. Personally, the smoke is my go-to, and little tip, if you throw a molotov inside a smoke, if an enemy tries going into the smoke, he won't be able to spot the molotov inside it, which will give you information. For the perks, pretty basic. Lightweight, quick fix, dead silence. For the score streaks, since we're with a high-risk gun in terms of gunfight, it's better to keep low-cost score streaks. So UAV, shock RC, and counter UAV. But what about a loadout that's all about speed and aggression? Second loadout, Fennec loadout. With the Fennec, using a secondary that can kill isn't as important, but I still like to run a shorty with it just for the sake of doing a kill with the shorty and then pushing with the Fennec. It's a super aggressive combination, but it works well for aggressive playstyles. For the operator, I just go for the misdirection device as I'm usually running around the map like crazy. For tactical and lethal, I'm also using the Molotov and the smoke grenade as we have the same issue with range restriction as with the R90. For the score streaks, we're not necessarily as much at risk in terms of dying a lot, so we can go for one high cost score streak. So what I do is that I go for the triple UAV, counter UAV, and advanced UAV. For the perks, also really standard. Skulker for strafing and walking faster, quick fix, and dead silence. Third loadout, the USS-9 loadout. I'm not gonna waste your time. It's a copy of the Fennec loadout except for a few details. First, the operator. I'm usually running an Annihilator with this one, else it's a kinetic armor. And I'm using a melee weapon to run faster as the sprint speed is a bit slower than on the Fennec. Fourth loadout, the Bison loadout. Because as I said in the last top 10 script, the Bison is not only for the new players, it's also for the experienced ones who just like to chill. And again, it's a copy of the Fennec loadout, but here only one thing changes. I'm only using the kinetic armor on this loadout because I kinda try to go on nuke streaks with it, but mostly because it's super funny to just run and gun having 150 HP. Now let's switch gears and talk about a flexible AR that can handle almost any situation. But is it really the best choice for all ranges? Fifth loadout, it's my flex AR, the HVK-30. I'm not a massive fan of super easy to use weapons apart from the Bison, so the HVK-30 perfectly fits what I like in a flex AR. I run a shorty with it to compensate for the lack of flexibility, especially in close range. For the lethal equipment, I run a Semtex because blocking an area isn't as important since I have something that can take down anything at any range overall. For the score streaks, same as before, triple UAV. For the tactical equipment, I mostly use a concussion grenade, which I usually use to counter people rushing me in close range. For the operator, I go for the claw, great for killing, especially in close range, which is where the HVK-30 suffers a bit. And for the perks, I won't tell you I haven't thought about going for the pinpoint perk, but I don't really like using that on a daily basis because it just makes your aim worse over time. So I go for something less toxic, restock, because I usually stay alive a lot more since I'm not rushing as much with an SMG. Then quick fix and dead silence obviously. Sixth loadout, it's my long range AR. I'm not good with the Odin, so I go for the LK-24. A shorty is obviously the best pick to compensate for the horrible performance of the LK-24 in close range. For the operator, I like going for the Annihilator on this loadout as it helps me create space no matter if it's close, mid, or long range. For the tactical equipment, I'm using a trophy system, and for the lethal one, I'm using a trip mine. Yeah, it's my camper loadout. Everybody has its own thing like that. For the score streaks, you could go for the triple UAV, but I usually go for two high cost score streaks here, so UAV, advanced UAV, and airstrike. For the perks, again, I use restock, then toughness, as quick fix isn't needed most of the time, and lastly, as always, dead silence. But what if you're not facing enemies head on? What if you need to counter their strategies? For the 7th loadout, now we're breaking the effective range ranking. It's the anti-score streaks loadout. It's the Man of War Thermite plus FHJ loadout. Hear me out, never use this for killing purposes, but have it ready for destroying score streaks at all times. Nothing matters on this loadout except two things. First, use cold-blooded and pinpoint. That way automatic score streaks can't lock on you, and you see the score streaks through the leaves of trees thanks to the red outline. Second, use the Annihilator, not to use it to destroy score streaks, but that way if you were using a claw or a kinetic, the charge will not go down. If you had a claw on your loadout and you switch to one with a kinetic, since the kinetic needs like half of what the claw needs to be charged, when you switch back to the claw, it'll go down to the maximum of the kinetic at best, which is lower than the charge you previously had sometimes. 8th loadout, the anti-killing streak loadout. It happens to everyone, your teammates are feeding someone, and you need to take him down so it doesn't get too many score streaks. The solution is easy. Equip your best T63 or SKS or sniper. Put Ghost, Dead Silence, and Pinpoint on, and kill that guy. After that, switch back to your previous loadout. Here, I would advise you to put on a misdirection device or a kinetic to help you secure that kill. Don't forget to throw a Molotov to help yourself get the kill and restrict where he can go. Don't hesitate to use a trip sensor here as it gives you a wall hack and it slows down the enemy. Alright, let's get precise. Time for some sniping loadouts, starting with respawn modes. Nice loadout, it's my respawn sniping loadout. The sniper doesn't matter much. Here it's a ZRG, but it could be anything. For the operator, I'm using an Annihilator to follow up on my sniper shots. For the lethal and tactical, even though I don't use them a lot, I'm running Semtex and smoke grenades. For the secondary, it's either a shorty or a melee weapon, depending on whether I'm comfortable or not. For the score streaks, I'm usually going with the same score streaks as with the shotgun loadout, so UAV, shock RC, and counter UAV. And for the perks, I'm running lightweight, quick fix, and dead silence. 10th, my one and only S&D loadout, and it's a sniper obviously. Here again, the sniper doesn't matter much. For the secondary, I'm using a shorty at all times. Perks, I'm using lightweight, amped, and dead silence. Lethal, I'm using the Molotov, tactical, the trophy system. And for the score streaks, all low cost and sub 500 points, UAV, shock RC, and hunter killer drone. It's just the basic S&D sniper loadout, and since the Tundra doesn't have much flinch, I'm fine using amped with it. I'm not necessarily optimizing my loadouts perfectly as I prioritize fun over efficiency nowadays, but that gives you a good basis on how to make good loadouts. So there you have it, 10 essential loadouts to dominate in COD Mobile. But what loadouts do you use? Let us know down in the comments below. Sometimes you might want to play faster than usual, and here are the fastest guns you can use in COD Mobile. Click the video on the left to learn more.